With the release of version 2 just around the corner, many things are changing in PSO. And one of the things that did get announced was, now granted, I wouldn't really be mad at you if you missed this because it was kind of announced in passing and wasn't even on the slide, but we will be seeing a change to all weapons and units being upgraded to level 70 and getting an extra augmentation slot. This does bode the question, what are we going to put in that augmentation slot? Well, that's what today's video is here to answer, depending upon what class, weapon, or playstyle that you may personally play. But before we jump into that, if you guys are new here, my name is Chrono. I primarily cover PSO2 content. Would much appreciate a subscribe as we work our way towards that 10K mark, hopefully, by the end of this year. Anyway, let's go ahead and jump into this. Now, I've approached this video a few different ways, and each time I went through it, I found that partway through the video itself, it got a little tedious, it got a little boring. I don't know how to not make that happen without just throwing numbers at you guys. One thing I don't like doing anymore is just putting a number up on the screen and saying, hey, this is by this much, and this is better for this reason. One thing that irritates me more than anything else is not really having, I don't say proof, but information to find out how someone got to an answer, right? I guess the whole showing your work thing back in high school and middle school is starting to really rub off on me, huh? Either way, it's something that I really like to see, and if I'm going to show you guys information or talk about these sort of things, I feel like it's unfair for me not to provide the same thing to you. So I'm going to offer a quick little disclaimer before we get started. There is a lot of spreadsheet spreadsheet basically math that's going to go on in this one here. We don't have access, of course, to the damage meter that we're going to be getting in the future. So once we get a hold of that, I can show you guys, the difference in damage, actively. But as it stands right now, all we can do is use math to our advantage. So I'm going to show you guys that in this case. And on top of that, I'm also going to give you guys a timestamp to where we get to the overall answer, where what is the best choice for you to put in that 6th slot. That way you don't have to sit through the math if you don't want to. But for those of you guys who really want to understand how this works, or you just want to check me to make sure that I'm giving you guys the right information, let's go ahead and hop over to spreadsheets and get into this. So for the uninitiated, this is Cakewalk's damage calculator. I've done many a video covering this. We've used this tons of times on the channel, so I'll leave a link in the video description to my video showing how this works. But there are a couple of things you need to know or understand to understand how we get to certain answers. First off, at the very top here, you can see we have the total crit rate. This crit rate is the 5% base, plus the 10% from add-on skills and the extra 5% from our current subclass choice, which is Slayer. You're going to hear Slayer a lot in this video. Just get used to it. It's pretty standard. Scrolling down, you're going to also see the weapon choice that we have here, as well as the units and the augments. Off to the right here, we can see that we've got settings for how the damage is calculated. At the moment, we're going to be calculating against a level 70 enemy. Now, I did tool around with calculating versus Gigantics enemies, but with Gigantics, the thing you have to keep in mind is that they are level 74 at the moment, or will be 79 to our 75 in the future. Now, because of this, these enemies do have an extra damage or an extra defense modifier that does nerf our damage overall. Realistically, we can compare using this, but the higher number does just look nicer, so I went ahead and decided to go with level 70 enemies, since that's what normally people are going to be fighting. So just keep that in mind when we're looking at comparison at the moment of the actual damage formula. If you do this on your own, just double check and see what enemy you're up against. On top of that, we also have, of course, potential level 6 enabled. This is very important because a lot of people are going to have access to potential level 6, as well as elemental potential level 6 enabled. This is less important because we're not going to talk about any elemental weapons today. But in case, again, you're doing comparisons and you're including elemental weapons, make sure to have that enabled because pot 6 is very, very strong. And it does change for some weapon types. Astrian actually gets a bump over Justitian when it comes to raw potency, not only just base, but the potential as well. So let's start out with what we currently have as our quote best in slot setup. There are 2 schools of thought when it comes to the best in slot setup, and that depends on your class as well as your weapons. The first question would be the class. It's pretty simple. Are you a Slayer or are you not a Slayer? If you're a Slayer, you're going to go with potency overall. If you're not a Slayer, you actually are going to want to go with potency floor with an asterisk. And that asterisk is weapons. Now, if you're using a gun blaze, then you're going to want to go with potency. However, it is a little bit closer, so it's not that big of a deal. I'm not going to tell you any more of what you should be using outside of that, but just know you can go with a potency setup or you can go with a potency floor setup, and I'm going to show both of those to keep this fairly simple. So first off, let's take a look at this number we've got up here. We've got 2407. Now we're going to get, of course, getting an extra augmentation slot. So what should we put in that slot itself? So for potency floor builds, it's pretty easy. I know you see Alt Secreta here. I'm going to put it here as well. The reason for this is because we have another augment that's exactly like Alt Secreta, and either you have it in already, or this is going to be your choice for your 6th slot, and that is Def Trippable. Def Trippable provides us 2.5% potency and 2.5% potency floor. Overall, this is going to be your choice by far of what you want to go with. There is one asterisk on that one as well, and I want to check it really quick here with you guys, so hold on one second. So keep in mind at the time of making this video, this is before the update. We don't know all of the augments we're going to have. Now let's say, I don't know, we get stat 5s, and stat 5s are probably going to roll as 4%. If that happens, we're going to use HAL Finale as kind of a placeholder. You can see that HAL Finale or that 4% potency ends up being the stronger choice. So we're looking at a 2.5 ratio. A 4%er ends up being better than a 2.5. However, if we're looking at a 2.5 versus a 3%er, so let's say we were to go with, I don't know, Nilsul, you can see that it does end up going down. So if we do get a 4%er to go into that slot, I would say that would be the go-to choice, right? For example, let's say we get a 4%er and I don't know, we get 2 4%ers, right? Let's say we get Stat and Soul that go up. Well, then now we're looking at knocking out one of these other ones here, right? We either probably knock out, I'd say Def Trippable because it's probably the cheaper of the two, and then toss the other 4%er on top of that as well. But that's if we get a 4%er. We're only working what we know of at the moment. So at the moment, the go-to is going to be having that 2.5. And what that's going to do is actually a really cool thing here. I'm going to show you guys if we go ahead and slap this on all of our gear. Pop it all the way down. We are up to 74.95% potency floor, which is very, very close to what it used to be before it dropped down to 50%. So we're getting close to being right back where we were when we started. I know that's probably like, oh, we're back where we started. Sort of. Relax. we're getting there. It's sort of the same thing, but basically with more augment slots, we can get more potency floor and we can push ourselves up higher. Now, this is probably a concern for some people, right? What happens when we get more augment slots, more potency floor? I honestly feel like before then we're going to get crit chance enough that this isn't going to matter very much. And it's already starting to happen now, which is a perfect segue into the all potency build. Let's say you're someone who wants to go full on to potency. Well, let's go ahead and take a look at what that's going to look like now. All right, so if we were going all in on potency, this is close to what we'd be looking at. We'd be swapping out mastery for just stat. We would drop the 2.5 for 3%, which seems strange, right? Because beforehand when we did that, it didn't actually increase our damage. But if you actually take a look, if we were to say mastery, you can see our damage goes down. Well, that's because with the 20% crit we have up here, as well as the 18% crit we have here from Fatal 3, as well as, of course, the crit rate from Gunblaze. Granted, if we have full uptime, of course, it'd be what, 10%, I think, is what they have it at. Let's see, where's the full uptime? We'll like slots. Gunblaze. There we go. Full uptime, 10%, right? It'd even be more. But, I mean, it's copium to assume that everyone's going to have uptime fully. 80%, I feel like, is a fair spot to be in. You've got closing in on that 40% crit magical number. Now 40% is basically where you're going to start to see situations where you want to start pushing more crit damage than crit chance. Granted, that can't happen here because you need the crit chance to get to that number, but it also is a situation where you're going to start pushing more potency versus potency floor. I have to go ahead and warn you guys though, is look at this number. It's 55%. It is super low. All we're getting potency floor from is the Addy double stat, and that's it. Granted, we are supposed to be getting a new one of these as well, so it's going to change up the game a bit more, but this is to kind of give you the school of thought of that 40% crit chance spot being kind of where you start moving into potency. Now, keep in mind, that does mean you're going to have less consistency when it comes to your damage, but when you do pop off and you do have those good runs, they're going to be higher, and on average, you're going to do more damage. So what are we going to put in that last potency slot? Well, I mean, to be perfectly honest, there's not a whole lot you need to really think about here. You've got tech here, you have soul here, you see another 3%. Another 3%er. Another 3%er can be something like, I mean, I'm pretty sure Gigas is already taken up by Gigas Mass Day. I don't believe you can put both of those in there together. If you could, that's cool. But Steer Domina is a fantastic choice to go ahead and toss in there 3% overall. There's probably other 3% choices I can't think of off the top of my head right now. I'm sure chat is going to, you know, I say chat, but the YouTube comments are going to mention below, so feel free to take a look at those. But as you can see, we've got a good chunk that we got here. If we were to say, I don't know, use Mastery instead, you can see the difference. You do lose a little bit of damage. So Steer Domina, or whatever 3%er that you can think of would go there, would be the next thing we would slot in for this specific build. And it's that easy. It's that simple. Overall, you would see a damage increase for your class if you were to go with just flat damage. But as you've noticed, probably by keeping a close eye on the number, it's not that big of a difference. Realistically, this is more of a school of thought to understand what you should be pushing for, and then think about your wallet at the same time. If it's going to be too expensive to do this sort of thing, like you're really breaking the bank, I wouldn't recommend it. Go for what makes most sense for you, but you can use the rule set in the same sort of way. Let's say you can't afford Steer Domina. Well, Meltech Dual 4 is 2.75. Now we see that and we notice, okay, well, that's what I can afford. Let's look at Mastery 4 comparatively. Mastery 4 ends up being higher, but Mastery 4 is definitely more expensive than Meltech Dual 4. But the damage difference is not huge. These are the sort of things you want to keep in mind when you're going through and figuring out what you want your fourth slot, your sixth slot to be. But we're here to answer the question of what the strongest option is going to be overall. And that is going to be a 3%er. And you're good to go. Cool thing about this is Slayer, same thing. You're just going to add in a 3%er and you're all set. It's going to be even more powerful for you. The only difference is going to be that you want a Termina weapon, not a Fatale weapon. Slayer can basically get up to 40% on their own. That is without even considering the Gunblaze mixed in here. So with Slayer, it's fairly simple. That brings us more or less to the conclusion of this video. So at the end of the day, what is going to be the best choice for augmentations? Well, if you're playing any class sub Slayer and you're not using a weapon that gives you at least 20% overall crit chance, and we have nothing else that's providing us any crit chance, then you're going to want to realistically go with the Potency Floor build. And in the Potency Floor build, all we're going to be doing is tossing in either Alt Secreta if it's not already on our piece, or if it is on our piece, we'll be tossing in Def Trippable. Now, if you are using a Gunblaze weapon and using Fatale 3, then you're going to be going with the Potency build. And with the Potency build, you're going to be tossing in whatever 3%er fits in that slot. I recommend something like Steer Domina. Again, at the time, I can't think of anything that's that close, but Steer Domina does seem to be the default choice for the most part. And if you're a Slayer, more or less the same thing. You don't need to worry as much about your weapon choice. I would still say Gunblaze or something with crit chance if possible. This is of course just going into the expansion. Of course, new weapons are going to have different potentials, so we're not sure what they're going to have specifically, but for Slayer, you have the added benefit of not needing to worry about your weapon type. You already get enough crit chance as it is if you're playing decently. And in that specific situation, you want to go Potency, not Potency Floor, and you're still going to go with Steer Domina. Again, this is beforehand, not after. Maybe you want to go ahead and upgrade your gear immediately as soon as it pops up and you're using something older and not the newer stuff. We'll have to wait and see when we get a hold of those augmentations in the coming weeks. All right, guys, that was a ton of information. Let me know if there's anything that I missed in the comments below. Like if you enjoyed this type of video, subscribe when you keep up with more. If we reach like, I don't know, if we hit a decent size like goal, I want to say like 200, maybe I'll do a long form of this where I show you guys every single individual augment that I swapped around and how I did all the comparisons, but hopefully this gets you guys the information you need in a bit more of a concise manner. Anyway, guys, take care, everyone. Peace out.